All right, welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream episode 290. I am your host, Joshua Kemble. I'm going to be working on comic books today. Exciting times. We just did a live stream earlier today with Christopher Runciman on his channel. Thank you. Many thank yous to Christopher. That was a lot of fun. We had a really nice discussion, so I encourage you guys, if you're subscribed to Christopher Runciman, check out the hangout we did earlier today. On the dock for the day, what I'm planning on doing is working on page 77 of Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. On Christopher's stream today, I got through shading about 4 of 8 panels, and so what I plan on doing on this stream is finishing the shading for page 77 and kind of working through it, and hopefully doing colors as well. Who knows what today's stream will bring? I'm Joshua Kemble. I've been a graphic designer and illustrator for over 20 years. When I'm not doing graphic design and illustration, was an art director. I recently left my position. I had done that for about almost a decade. And so now I'm on a new adventure of trying to kind of figure out a way to kind of continue to make a living as an artist while also maintaining my deadline with my book publisher. So yeah, it's an adventure, and I invite you guys along with me. If you're watching live, feel free to chime in the chats. If anybody who's listening along live wants to hop on stream, just give me a heads up in the chats and I'll send you a link. As long as, we discuss safe for work stuff, I'm totally okay with that. And with all that being said, we're going into the live stream. And now that I think about it, do we really need safe for work stuff? I don't work for a corporate overlord anymore. Yes. Okay. Anyhow, so let's get into drawing. This is my drawing stream. I'm not sure what's on the dock for today's hangout. I'm kind of interested in seeing what comes out of it. Right now, what I want to do is go ahead and shade this stuff and talk about some potential plans of what I would like to do next and what's kind of the plan. One thing I really want to do on this stream. So, real quick, this is page 77. We're going to go ahead and start shading. So basically the first thing I need to do is shade this page, and then we're going to flat color it. And then we're going to see where that leads us. So one thing I really want to do on this channel is I want to do a painting. It's probably either going to be later tonight or possibly tomorrow that I'm able to get to doing the painting. It's an idea that I have that I thought would work really well. I had a while ago because I've done these really rad Victorian era paintings. They look like spooky haunted mansion style portraits of my own family. And it kind of was all based on a joke that my wife and I had about how when our son is older, how funny it would be if he took home a date and they, imagine you're like dating somebody and you go to their house and you look on their wall and they have creepy Victorian portraits of the family. And we just thought that was so funny that I actually made it a reality. But I actually enjoy painting. This is something I haven't been able to do for years, partially from like kind of working like an in-house, design gig, like doing art direction and management and stuff. And so I think it would be really cool to like open up commissions for Victorian era style portraits. But in order to open up commissions for it, I'd like to actually show, the process of painting that. And hopefully you guys will get something out of it too. I usually use a lot of mixed media, and I'll usually do like acrylic on board. My passion really is in oil painting when it comes to painting, but obviously the setup for oil paint for anybody out there is pretty hard to do. Whereas the setup for, let me make sure my audio's on too. Let me double check that. I'm going to double check my audio settings just to make sure we're rocking. We're cooking with steam here. Okay, good. Audio's all good. So yeah, like what I end up doing is kind of mixed media with really cheap acrylics. And I think it might actually be really helpful for people to see live who might be curious about like the process of painting or painting an illustration by hand and doing that on board. So that's something I would like to do either tonight or probably tomorrow, realistically. But there's a couple things on my dock I have to do. So today, like the way I'm kind of dealing with the tumultuousness of like a new adventure is I make lists. This is partially because I've mentioned this multiple times on the podcast, or on the stream, I guess I should say. But I am pretty darned autistic, and it's something my wife is pretty aware of about me. She's definitely observed it. And so part of that is like I can get overwhelmed very easily. Like that's I think a big part of autism. But one thing I do that really helps me with overload or anything like that is to just kind of make lists and then tackle those lists one at a time. And the nice thing about that is, it's like kind of can be a superpower to an extent. Oh, Bernie Sanders has visited me. I don't know if you guys see this, but we have Bernie on the on stream right here. And my wife is rocking a really awesome DuckTales shirt today. It's pretty badass. Which my mom bought for her. Because we're awesome in the extent that we have dinosaurs in our house. We have DuckTales shirts. And we're full-blown adults. Okay, guys? My wife and I, we take adulting to a different level. So anyhow, like one of the ways I kind of deal with like overload, and I think this is actually helpful for people who might be working on art or their own things, is I make lists, and then I sort of triage like the list, like it's an ER, and I'm like, okay, what's the most urgent thing that I have to take care of? And like, to me, triaging right now, like thinking about what I have on my dock, I have a publisher that, I have a publishing deal for this book, so I have to get this done. So I have to make sure I'm prioritizing this book. So my tactic with this book is to kind of alternate it in tasks. And then like when I'm not working on this book, I'm going to alternate it to other tasks, right? So every other task I'm going to be doing either a completed page of Not Death But Love, the Strange Supernatural Story for Elizabeth Barrett Browning, or I'm going to be working on another task like between. And so my next task after this is to update my resume so that I can kind of get that little, card out there in case there are in-house jobs that I would want to work. And I want to be a little more selective while I have the time and ability to with where I work if I do choose to work somewhere. And I probably am going to update my CV in that process as well so that I can kind of start looking for adjunct positions at colleges. We got Gary Hodges here. Gary, are you working on stuff? If you're working on stuff, I can send you a link, my dude, if you want to hop on. If you're eating, I get it. But it might be fun to hang out with the Hodges. So yeah, so like that's kind of what's the next things on my dock. But right after that, like right after resume, right, it would be another page of this, and then after that, it would be working on that painting on a stream. Now I don't even know if I have the setup to do a painting live. It's going to be kind of fun to do. Nice. Gary said, I'm wrapping up my day job. Might be able to hop on in 15 or so minutes. Nice. I no longer work at a day job. So, Gary, since you're probably listening to this on your headphones and it might give you a kick, I'm just going to say, fuck, 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 because I can. Excuse me. I probably shouldn't have said that with my son in the house. I just wanted to be able to give you some not safe for work fun while you're listening. Pardon my language. Gary said, "Bwah, ha, 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 ha." I just wanted to explore the freedom, the new freedom that I have whilst I have it. If I ever go back to being a representative of a corporation, obviously I will not be doing the 50 F word slur bomb. I don't think it was a slur bomb. I don't actually use slurs. This is going to be a tangent now, guys. Why is everybody obsessed? Like, I feel like people who are really big, quote unquote, freedom of speech advocates are obsessed with the idea of slurs being something they should say. And I'm like, personally, my own opinion is, who uses slurs? Like, who's the person out there using slurs that's so in love with those slurs that they feel like they're being repressed to not being able to say like a horrible slur about someone? I don't know. I feel like maybe it's the area I grew up in, but I'm like, I grew up and we never used slurs. Like, I never did. Like, my family was like Republican too. Like, I wasn't, always a lefty. And, my dad didn't use slurs. My mom didn't use slurs. It's just kind of a weird thing to me that there's like a culture of people on the internet who actually are just like, they're like, oh, how dare they take my slurs? It's like, I don't know. To me, that cracks me up. Oh, nice. Gary said, well, I'm work from home today, so I enjoyed that at audible volume. Nice, nice. I thought you would feel liberation there, Gary, and instead I just gave you a flood of F-bombs. My kid is playing Among Us with my wife. They have like stuffed animals set up, and the stuffed animals are trying to figure out who the imposter is. And right now they're kind of in a really intense meeting about said imposter to try to get to the bottom of which stuffed animal got to the other stuffed animal. Anyhow, if anyone listening live understands the whole obsession with slurs that some people have, let me know, but I never really understood it. I was raised better. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like I was raised pretty decent, where you just kind of don't use those words. And like, nor has it ever been a temptation to use them. Like, it's like, if I get really mad, my go-to is like a bad word, like the F word, or, maybe I say what the hell or something like that. But rarely is the first thing that comes to mind when I like stub my toe, like some kind of weird slur. Like, it's just not in my DNA. So it's kind of weird to me. I don't know why this is on my mind. I think I was recently listening to something where people were complaining because they're like, you can't say anything anymore. And then what they were saying, I was like, well, yeah, but like, why do you want to say that? Like, and did you ever say that? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just the region I grew up in. Maybe it's like if you grew up in like the deep South, there's like some weird tribal connection to using those words. I don't know. But anyhow, that was interesting to me. So that's on my mind. Let's see what else. What else have I been doing today? I was hanging with Christopher Runciman. I am so pleased and honored that Christopher had me on his live stream. I feel like Christopher Runciman is one of the most talented people I've met. And I feel really honored that he's kind of in our circle. There's a lot of people in our circle. I even talked about this on Christopher's stream, like Jim Lujan. There's your Gary Hodgeses. Gary, is that how people say like the kind of I don't know. I guess that would mean like more than one Gary. I don't know how to say it, but there's people like Gary Hodges. There's people like Scott Cirkland. There's people like Corey Kerr. I feel really honored to be friends with these people because they're insanely talented and they're always working on cool projects. And that in turn makes me want to up my game and work on cool projects and to be talented. It's like it's a really cool circle. But Christopher does like a daily stream where he does like a 1-page comic, and you just have to see him draw to know what I'm saying. The dude has just insane drawing skills. Like he will bust out a 1-page comic. He does it really effectively. His art's fairly photorealistic in the way that it's executed, and the speed with which he works and the freedom with which he works is admirable. And so today I was so stoked to not have to say no to somebody inviting me on to hang out on stream, like to have the freedom to be able to be like, yeah, let's hang out and work on art. But I was also really honored to be able to spend the day with Chris and hang out with him and talk a bit. And I hope I didn't interrupt too much, because that is, if you guys are new to the Kremlin, which is what I call the followers of this show, it's kind of a joke because a long time ago, a comic convention that I was speaking at put my name as Kremlin or Kemble instead of Kemble in the show pamphlet and everything like that. I kind of recounted the story on stream, and it has since evolved into a twist on the word. Like, how there's the Kremlin in Russia, it's like the secret police or whatever. Well, we thought it would be funny if the people who watch my stream are called the Kremlin, which is followers of Kemble. Gary said we do have a good group. We do. So yeah, so I really enjoyed hanging out on stream with Christopher, and I really value the talented group of people that, and the talented and non-toxic group of people that we've kind of developed around us, and global people. Well, kind of global. We're starting to take over the globe. We have our Canadians joining our forces. I think Gary knows what I'm talking about. It's like Risk, you guys. It's the game of Risk. We're slowly, our little art community, we have people at the gates. We have a couple soldiers. We got a couple troops in North America, and we've expanded to Canada within the last year or so with the addition of Christopher and Philip. Who knows where we'll go next? That's a pretty good position to be in Risk, right? You think about it. We got North America and Canada, right? We've got pretty much like people in our circle spanning the U.S. And now we've got Canada. What country will be next? I feel like we need a British guy. We need somebody who's British in our circle. But I think we're going to take the globe. I think that's the gist of this message, ladies and gentlemen. You have to watch out for the Artcasters community, because we are going to take the globe. And no if, and, or but about it. We're going to take over YouTube. We're going to be very successful. Scott Cirkland just recently relaunched his YouTube very effectively. Dee Dee Willingham is joining. Dee Dee, I was just talking about the Artcasters community taking over the globe. How cool it is that we've expanded our reach. We now have Canadian brothers and sisters. Who knows what extent the domination of the interwebs will be with our art community. Dee Dee, we need a British person. That's what I was saying. We need, I don't know what place we go next, because we have Canada, we have North America. Where should we expand to, Dee Dee? I feel like Dee Dee, you could be leading the front on our world takeover. Dee Dee has a very huge following on YouTube, a really good YouTube channel. I was pleased. Again, this is just the advantage of not being kind of stuck with the corporate overlords. I was really pleased to be able to watch Dee Dee's stream live. I didn't comment in the chats, but I watched your stream live, Dee Dee, yesterday, and it was awesome. And I was like, holy crap, this is rad. I usually would be like having water cooler conversations at that point in the day, you know, the boring ones that everybody hates at a workplace where you're like, oh, how are the kids? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And you're like pouring coffee, and as you're pouring the coffee, your soul is just slowly getting sucked out of your eyeballs. Like, let's do that sound effect one more time. This is how I feel working for a corporation that I don't necessarily want to work for. It's, you know, you're kind of sitting there and you're like, hey, Bob, how's it going? Pretty good, pretty good. How's it been, Bill? Good weekend with the kids? Like soul just getting sucked out of every orifice in your body. Jim said, hey guys, spending some time before Indiana Jones starts. Nice, you're seeing the new Indiana Jones. That's awesome, Mr. Jimmy the Lutz. J-Boys. J-Boys forever. J-Boys for life. Jim, I think the next time we hang out, we need to get matching J-Boys tattoos. Dee Dee has to pick the spot that we get our tattoos. Dee Dee, where should Jim and I get our friendship tattoo? Dee Dee said, yeah, my streams and the awesome chat makes me 13 years of doing it all worth it and very good. And then she said, hiya, Jim. Nice. Well, Dee Dee, I think what you do is really inspiring. It's fun to see you chase your inspiration and really like, I mean, like just watching you do like collages and these really awesome art pieces and stuff is really inspiring. And the fact that you're kind of chasing your inspiration every day is you're living the dream, Dee Dee, which is very cool. That is way better than what I was describing earlier, where it's the corporate soul-sucking succubus monster of working in-house for a place you don't want to work at. Jim said, how about we get our tattoos in Hollywood? Oh, you meant on our bodies. But anyhow, I think Jim and I are going to have to get matching friendship tattoos. I don't care, Jim. You don't have a say in this. It's going to happen. J-Boys tattoos. Maybe inside a heart would be good. With a little arrow through it. Paul said, we getting tats? Yeah, we getting tats. It's got to happen. Maybe we could do it on our foreheads like gangster rappers. What do you guys think? Gary said, shoot me a link if you want company for a little bit. Yeah, I want company for a little bit. If anyone else wants to hop on stream, feel free. We're hanging out and working on comics. Doesn't mean you have to work on comics. You could be working on art. Let's see here. I am sending Mr. Hodges a link. Yeah, Jim said, let's get ready to crumble. How did Philip say that you should start your show each day? What was that phrase? I love that idea. Let's get ready to crumble, ladies and gentlemen. in the corner. Wait, I have a cool sound effect here. You think you're ready for the Kremlin? You haven't even begun to see the Kremlin. The Kremlin's gonna crumble with his 2 stories. That's a Jim Lujan joke. 2 stories, one here, ready for ya. The Kremlin is gonna come. All right, anyhow. How was that? You guys like that? I love this sound effect thing. I noticed Scott, like I encourage you guys to check out Scott's last live stream too. It was super fun. I was on Chris's stream at the same time Scott was streaming, so I missed his stream, but he made wax packs, like legit authentic wax packs. And he's got like sound effects of like Stan Lee, like during the live stream. It's amazing. I love the new direction that Scott is going in. Nice. Paul said, I got to go for a walk, 2.5 miles. We'll bring us with you on your walk, my dude. Dee Dee said, am I the only one that knows Kat Von D? You know Kat Von D? My buddy, a good friend of mine who's an Imagineer, did like work for her. He did like packaging design for her. They had like a makeup line. And he designed her makeup packaging. Very good friend of mine from art school. I've wanted to have him on Artcasters, but that friend works for Disney, and Disney has like real stringent laws and rules about how much you can talk about work on streams, and so unfortunately, I probably won't have him on for a long time, unless he too joins the rank of exiting the corporate soul sucking for a bit. I probably might return to the corporate soul sucking, to be honest. It's nice to have the stability, a consistent check. That's all. Paul says, I know Kat Von D. She worked at the Dairy Queen on the corner when she was a teen. Dee Dee said, you asked who should do your tats. I said, Kat. No one answered. I thought maybe no one knew who she was. I thought no one knew who she was. And Paul was saying, I lie. When Paul was saying, I lie, I just picture him going, I lie. Sorry. Yes. No, Dee Dee, I think we know Kat. I was asking you to tell us where we should get tattoos, like where on our bodies. Like if Jim and I had to get matching tattoos, friendship tattoos, as they call it, friend tats. You and Jim. Where should that be? Tramp stamps, I suggested. I think that's pretty good. Jim, what do you think? Like tattoos on the small of our back? It could just say, I felt like J-Boys would be cool, but it might be funnier if it was like Art Bros. Art Bros for life with a 4, the letter, the number 4. I just said letter 4. I'm smart, you guys. I call numbers letters. Gary, I sent you a link to the stream in case you want to hop on. It's on Facebook. Paul said, Bill Plimpton has a great anecdote about how Disney owns your dreams. They do. Although I will say, the buddy of mine who works for Disney, that is a cool job. That is a job that you can write home about. Like, you could actually say, like, hey, I work legit for the freaking mouse. For the mouse house. That's a pretty cool job. Oh my. You just said. I said frick, which is not a bad word, but you probably shouldn't say. But it was very close. You also said crap. Oh, I apologize for saying bad language, Ben. Can I get a high 5? Language? Can I get a high 1? Oh, the high 1. Thank you. My son corrected my language.
It's just hearing that word irritates me.
Nice. Jim said, Kat Von Delightful? Kat Von Didi? She said, she is an awesome artist and very intelligent. Kat, I mean. Well, she was pretty cool to my buddy when he was doing her, like, I think it was like a Sephora line or something. Who's this?
The one and only.
The Gary, the Hodges that is Gary, the Gary
right.
that is Hodges.
That's right.
How is it going, Gary Hodges?
Okay, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. I'm working through the list of things.
I can
Working
tell.
on Blue Sky stuff. Yeah. Yes. How was your day? How was your day?
How was your day? Mostly uneventful.
Nice.
Right now, so I work from home Mondays and Tuesdays.
That's badass.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I really hate that arrangement because all artists absolutely hate working from home, you know?
You know what? Actually, I think the balance is just about right for me because I would not want to be working at home all the time.
Yeah.
I like actually being able to dress up and go to the office and interact with people.
Nice.
And at the same time, I am, and my boss knows this, I am far more productive at home. Like if I don't have the distractions of people knocking on my office door, coming in to chit chat, or having to pick up my phone or whatever,
yeah.
You know, I can really make headway on stuff. So it's two at home, 3 in the office. That's about right. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it is funny though how that works. I think some people don't understand that about creatives, that if you kind of let creatives just do creative, like they tend to actually kind of do it real well.
You have to be able to well, I think the other thing about, especially you can, any illustrator can appreciate this, or an animator, I would think Jim could appreciate this. There are times where you just have to have your head down. Yeah. And anything that pulls you out of it, it's like that scene in The Shining when Jack Nicholson goes off on his wife for distracting him, because like every time you do this, it takes me time to get back where I was. Like this, now he was a total dick about it in the movie, but it's very real. Like that's very much like, you don't understand. Like this is completely derailing me. Even if someone comes by and says like, "Hey, is Dwayne in?" Yeah. Like now I'm derailed. Like I was in a mode, and now like. Yeah. So anyway.
Was it you or Jim who was recommending that I do a live stream? I think it was Jim who was saying I should do a live stream where I just talk as if I'm drawing, you know, like normal. Like I'm like, welcome to Joshua Kemble's live stream, all of it, right? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm working on the page and stuff like that. And as I'm doing it, all you see on screen is all work and no play makes Josh a dull boy.
All work and no play makes like just writing it over and over. Yeah, that was my idea. I still want you to do that.
So if I do that, I think I would have to pre-record writing it and just kind of loop the cycle so that I could talk very loosely and freely, and then I would kind of move my hand as if I was doing it.
Like the setup you have right now, if you could drop the cam that's showing your hand.
Yeah.
And we're just playing like this endless loop where you have your artboard.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have to actually be doing anything with you could just have your hands like on your mouse or whatever, and it would all work. I'm excited to see that Jim is apparently waiting to see Indiana Jones. Our mutual friend, Chris Ward, has been badgering us to see it so he can discuss it.
Oh, nice.
And I caught it a few days ago. Now I guess Jim's going to see it. So we'll finally be able to satisfy Chris Ward and talk about it with him.
Chris Ward, who is hilarious. We had him on Artcasters, amazing storyteller. I feel like that guy and Jim have a lot in common in the sense that they're both just naturally incredible storytellers.
Yeah.
And both just naturally hilarious too.
Yeah. That was
but also just like Chris Ward, I feel, has a real gift for just pacing.
Yeah.
And weaving a yarn, you know, that you're like,
he does.
You're intrigued. And it could be him talking about getting hot sauce packets at Taco Bell, and you'd be enwrapped in this incredible story.
Yeah, 100%. So now what I'm doing is, so right here in Arizona, it is 6 p.m.
So it's no longer 115 degrees.
No, it's only 106 degrees, right?
Nice, yeah.
And like
a nice cool 106.
Let's see here. That's 106.
Yeah. Nice breezy afternoon, and
the front lawn needs to be mowed. I'm waiting till 7 p.m. where it'll still probably be 100 degrees, but there won't be any direct sun, and I'm probably going to go out and mow the front lawn. So right now I'm just hydrating and just preparing for my 100-degree lawn mower. So.
Jim said, wait, this is J Boys, not G Boys. I think he's offended, Gary, that you're on. And then he also said, so far, I vehemently disagree with everything that Gary has said so far. And he said, by the way, that last comment was posted before Gary even began speaking. So I guess that my disagreement arc with you is over, because I fully agree with pretty much everything you say. I fully endorse Gary Hodges. But Jim is starting a disagreement arc that might have to be a cross-platform disagreement. Like I don't know what's going to happen on Gary's channel next and Jim's, but stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for Disagreement Arc Part 2.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will end before it really just spills over and just involves the whole world in some great disagreement war.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was talking about the Artcasters has strangely expanded its presence in the last few years. We now have a Canadian wing of our clique, and we're slowly taking over the continent.
We need an Australian.
Yeah, we do really need an Australia. I've come around on Australia. So Gary, I told you about this. This whole risk obsession of mine, and you equally are kind of into risk.
Yes.
And I was saying that Australia is a bad spot because it's kind of the place that all the new people go to because it's a great spot. So it's a bad spot because it's a great spot. I said that when I was first a master at Risk, and then I lost my master status and went all the way back to the beginner status by getting my ass handed to me.
Yes.
And on my arc back to master status, I have relied heavily on Australia.
Yeah.
So I have to admit, Australia is still one of the best plays. However,
it absolutely is.
You really need strategies lined up so you know how to take different continents if Australia is a no-go. And one of the best things to do is let people kill each other over Australia and then swoop in and take Australia.
Yes. I mean, my personal feeling is that Australia is I think it's the benefits of trying to go for Australia outweigh the weaknesses, but only barely.
Yes.
Only barely. I mean, and you really, it depends, but I think it really depends to me on what level of player are you playing against?
Yeah.
And how many other players are there?
Yeah. Because there's something called I'm forgetting what it's called. There's a term for it. I think it's called the deadliest trap. And it's a tactic in Risk for if someone is dominating the board with Australia. The only way it works is if the other three players clue in and they've played Risk a lot. And this is why Australia is so great, because generally when three people are getting along and collaborating on the board, it's only a matter of time before one of those three decides to attack the other's continent. And then this whole strategy is blown. But if all three can get along and mutually agree, let's take out Australia first, and then we'll all go at it.
Right.
Then what you do is you pin the Australian player in Australia by amassing troops that they can't hit without losing a mass quantity of troops themselves. Right. Since they're accruing troops slower, they inevitably lose. But that
not only
only
that,
works if all 3 players collaborate. So the best play with Australia is you just try to not piss people off, and you try to encourage those people to kill each other.
well, and one of the things that's attractive about Australia is actually one of the biggest dangers of it is there's a limited access.
Yeah.
So people can only attack you really from one direction, but you're also cornered.
Yep.
Like if it starts going bad, any other continent, it's like, well, I'm just going to retreat back to Africa or to Europe or to South America or to North America or like whatever.
You can recoup.
Like you can go a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. You can recoup your losses
Australia
with like another chunk of troops that are at a different side of the border. But in this case, you have one border and a big chunk of troops.
Right. And you
have if those get hedged in, you're done.
So you can also watch your doom kind of gradually get put together where people are just, if they're collaborating, it's like, okay, we're going to have a little truce in Asia and we're going to like mass all our people here and we're going to eventually take Australia. Like you just were sitting there watching it happen and you don't have a escape hatch.
But the beauty is there's many times where I've been playing Australia, you're in that position, you think it's all doomed because they're all getting along.
Yeah.
And then you make one little play that kind of encourages some hostility between the continents. And you see it all turn in your favor because North America suddenly is like, oh, I'm going to hit Europe. Boom. And you're like, yes, go, conflict. Anyhow.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's the thing. I think, I have to admit, a lot of the risk games I've played, I'm pretty content. I'm not delighted, but I'm content if I can get Australia. Like if that seems to be the convenient play, if it seems like that's the easiest continent to put together early on in the game, I'm happy to do it. But I think my biggest gripe about it is the next obvious area. I am a continent. Like I know you'd kind of do the sort of giant army strategy where you float around and you're not really obsessed with having a continent and collecting the bonuses for that. You're kind of just, at least
it depends. But yeah.
But like you're not obsessed with this idea of like I need to maintain my borders and reap the benefits of that.
Yeah.
I am. I like to do that. And the problem with Australia is you get it, and even if you can hold it, the next stop is Asia.
Yeah, and you're not going to get Asia.
It's a nightmare to try and keep and hold. So it really, I mean, it's kind of advantageous early on.
Yeah.
But there's like a mid game where now you're kind of handicapped because you're screwed with this bad board position. If I can choose, like if you're in a thing where it's like I could go anywhere, I much prefer North or South America.
You know what's bizarre? One of my favorites is actually Europe, which is like a very unpopular one because you have a lot of borders to defend, and a lot of people don't like it because you literally have 4 points that you need to be defending.
Right.
And usually the best tactic on that is a soft defense where you're literally disincentivizing people from hitting you because it'll give them a mild loss, but your giant army is like right behind the border. So if they hit that border, you're going to get it.
Right.
That's like the best way to, I think, defend Europe. But it's like, at the same time, that's actually my favorite place to play from and the place I'm most comfortable with. Obviously, Australia, everybody knows a good strategy. I will tell anybody who's new to Risk or you haven't played Risk, do not try to take Asia. Unless you're playing with like complete new players, just abandon the idea of Asia. If you're going to hit somewhere, hit Africa.
If you're
right next to you,
player, and it looks like for whatever reason your opponent is claiming North and South America, go for Asia. Sure, but no, I think especially 3 players are up. I don't even bother trying to get Asia. Unless you just see an opportunity late game, Then, but I don't. To me, that's pie in the sky.
Jim said perfect Risk talk, and India's starting. See, I am kind of curious. Oh, Dee was saying Josh tries not to piss people off.
Depends what day you catch him on, Dee.
Yeah, and if I'm playing Risk, 100%. Because, like, that's the thing. Like, Risk in itself, the whole success of it is the player that pisses people off is usually the one who's gone immediately. Like, immediately. Like, because there's nothing that will cause everyone to unify in Risk than like a selfish player.
Right.
So if you see a player who's just starting to dominate the board and expend all their troops and they're kind of attacking all their neighbors constantly.
Just aggressive, unnecessarily aggressive.
Yeah.
That will draw attention.
Yeah, and there's aggressive style players who do it really effectively. I am not one of those players. Like I have never really successfully. There's been one or two games where I was playing with somebody who I could tell just didn't know what they were doing, and in those cases, you can be super aggressive and win. But in general, I don't have a lot of success with aggressive play and risk. I think the best way is you kind of play it cool. Hope that somebody else on the board is going to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
And then there's emotional play. And once there's emotional play, as long as you're staying cool and calculated and sticking to a plan, then like you usually win, or
I'm
come in
also
second.
Not comfortable with really aggressive play. I think from having watched, it's been a while, but from the games of yours I was watching, I feel like you're probably a more conservative player than I am, but I'm definitely closer to your end of the spectrum where I prefer, like if I was in Vegas, I'm doing like the dollar bets, and very safe, where what I do every round though, and I know you sometimes are not a fan of this.
Yeah.
I always try to take at least one continent, just, not only just try to take one continent just to get like the card thing, but if I have an opportunity to break someone's continent, I always do that. 100%.
Oh, okay.
I don't go to invade, but it's like, no, if I can deny you your bonus, 100%. Like if you left Mexico takeable and you have North America, I'm taking. You can kick me out next turn. That's fine.
Yeah,
like that's all fair. But like I am not just allowing you to grow troops, and I know that tended to piss you off when people were doing that to you, where they're like, I'm breaking Africa or something just to kind of deny you that.
Yeah. Well, it depends because like, so to me, one of the tactics of like, to me that's helped me in Risk is actually letting people have a continent to an extent. So there's a power that you have to deny for sure. Right. But it's like a fine place because, like, for instance, it depends where you're playing from too. So what you're describing would work if you are securely holding, like, say, North America. You could get a little aggressive with your neighbors. Yeah. The problem is if you're in South America, your gameplay has to be friendly. You have to make friends with one of those continents most of the time, or you're not going to win. Because
what is your argument for that? Like
Africa, or sorry, not Africa. South America has 2 entry points, right?
Okay. Yeah.
2 defense points, and you have nowhere to collect cards except by having an exterior position, preferably in Asia, right? That exterior position is always vulnerable. It's always vulnerable to get taken out. And the second it gets taken out, you have to go to war with either North America or Africa, who are both accruing more troops than you are.
Right.
Well, so here's the thing. You have to tactically play kind with North America or hope that you can play good neighbor with Africa.
Right.
And then by that, you're kind of tested at first. And whoever's the good neighbor, that's where you kind of start taking an attack, a very strategic attack towards like, let's go after North America. The best way I've found to play South America, which is a position I like to play, is to kind of be friendly to preferably Africa so that they can go after England and Europe. Yeah. And I can go after North America. We have mutually assured advancement. And at that point, obviously, we will eventually kill each other. Right. But if we can strategize and team up, then like both weaker positions can become some of the strongest positions on the board.
I have a totally different philosophy on South America. So in South America, I had just finished saying that I tend to be a more conservative player. When I get forced into playing from South America, just from the way the assignments went.
Yeah, that's usually one of the harder positions to play from, but
that's one of the places that I will play aggressively because for this I have the same kind of read on South America as you do, but my solution to the problem is different. I don't like to have a little roving nation in Asia picking up a continent, like a country here and there, a territory here and there to, keep me going. Because when I see another player doing that, it's like, oh, well, I'm 100% wiping that out because it's his lifeline in South America. Like, let's isolate him.
Well, that's why you have to. I will say, just with that in mind, never play South America where you're fully reliant on that exterior troop because it's going to get taken out. So even if you play the exterior position game, you need to make sure that you're keeping that exterior position. This is the hard part about South America. If you play the exterior position, you have to keep it vulnerable to get taken out because you still want to be amassing a giant army in South America so that when it does get taken out, like you're getting easy cards. That's the whole play. You take easy takes of cards as you're amassing troops, and then once you're forced to, you're in a position to like kick some ass. And at that point, you go against the most aggressive player, whether it's North America or Africa, whoever wants to kind of amass armies at your border, that's the person you go at,
See, I think what I tend to do when I'm South America is, like you, I evaluate who can I play nice with, whoever's in Africa or who's in North America. When I decide who I'm going to play nice with, the other person is now the target.
Yes.
And so I move. So let's say South America, you've got two main fronts there.
Yes.
But let's say North America, I've decided, okay, North America is the target. I'm taking Mexico. So that's now my new official northern border of South America is Mexico. And I'm never letting anyone hold North America. That's effectively my spot. So I'll have my army massed on the African border and a even bigger army in Mexico. Or vice versa, I'll be in Africa. And eventually, if you can pull it off long enough, people will give up on the continent that you're encroaching on. And it will create a lot of infighting around the rest of the map. So, I think you can sometimes start building off that.
Yeah, I actually think we kind of agree on that in a weird way. It's so funny that we're able to have this long, interesting conversation about risk. My favorite move, if you're South America, is to be aggressive with North America.
Yeah.
Make homies with Africa, right? You and Africa are in a pact. It's like a non-aggression treaty.
We'll have a truce. Africa, you can worry, because Africa's got its hands full. It's trying to fend off Europe and probably two other players in Asia.
Yeah. And again, Africa and South America are totally different strategies than, I think Europe, you really do have to take the Churchillian, kind of speak softly, carry a big stick kind of approach, because otherwise Europe's just indefensible.
Yeah,
but if you play with massive, you keep your WMDs in the center,
Yeah, the Europe play definitely, I think, is do not draw too much attention to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough to not look easy.
Yeah.
You don't want to look like, oh, well, I could just go in there and take it, but not you cannot, in my opinion, risk strategy, you cannot play Europe as a dick. You have to try. That's the diplomacy, I think, position on the board. The other ones, there's
Africa's probably the second most diplomatic because, like you were saying, you're kind of in Africa, you're defending a lot of borders, and you're also vulnerable. You're the most easy target for Australia. If Australia wants to break someone, that's number one because you're not going to have as many troops amassed as Europe. Europe, if you're Australia and you hit Europe, that's usually your destruction. In general, you want to play real cool with Europe. If you keep breaking the borders of Europe and you're Australia, Europe's going to come down and annihilate you.
They can cut through. And whoever's playing Asia will probably make a path.
Yeah.
Because they're everyone's always eager to let somebody else get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
So that's usually the easiest alliance you'll make in Risk is hey, and this is why I love playing in person across from tables. Because I love the psychological effect of let's say you and I are playing. And Scott Circlin and Corey are there. And I say to Scott, I'm going to cut right through India here and annihilate Josh in Australia. I'm going to get Josh out of Australia for you. Just don't take it personal. And then as soon as I get it, I'm going to just totally pull back and you can have India back. I don't care. But we're going to wipe him out. And for the other player to hear this conversation.
Yeah. Oh, and what's
That's
great
the
is you
most
could
fun
actually
part.
say that, and this is where Risk gets fun in person. You can say that, and here's the thing, again, don't be the player who breaks your promise early on, right?
Right.
You can't, but Risk,
Right.
you will break promises.
Oh yeah.
And so there will be a time where you're like, hey, okay, just leave this area open. I'm going to hit this guy. And then that turn, that guy's all freaked out, and you actually turn on your ally.
Right.
And
the
it's
guy
destruction.
who pulled back to make room. It's like, you know what? Actually, I'm just going to camp in India. India's mine now.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Sorry, I just took it.
Yeah,
come
exactly.
and stop me.
But that's the fun of that's
It
to
is.
me what I live for with Risk is like the haggling and the
Yeah.
arguing around the table and the brinksmanship.
Yeah.
And it well, and also, and this is a conversation we had months ago. Every alliance in Risk.
Yeah.
This is not really every 95% of the alliances in Risk ends in betrayal.
Yep.
Absolutely. And
I was going to say there is no alliance in Risk. Like Risk, there's one winner. So there is no game of Risk where an alliance ends without betrayal.
Maybe one game in my life, it ended up with you and we have a pact until we're the last two standing.
Yeah.
And then as soon as that happens, now it's like pact is over.
Yeah.
And it actually ended up that way. You know,
and that's the best
time.
Those are the best scenarios to create, though, because especially if you're on the weaker position of like South America or Africa, where you have to have alliances in order to win. Like those are two key positions where there's no real like non-ally way of kind of taking the board. Because again, like let's say I'm Africa and you're pissing me off, right? Yeah. And you're pissing off North America, and you're pissing off me, and I'm right next to you, and North America is right next to you. So North America is amassing troops at your border. They're pissed. I'm amassing troops at your border because I'm like, screw this guy. Yeah. You're going to go at one of us and lose a bunch of troops, and at that point, the other is going to be like, screw this guy and take you out. Like that's why it's like such a fun game, because it really is like a game of tactics, and I enjoy it a lot. Like I really get a kick out of it. I get a kick out of like the different ways you can play. And I actually find it really challenging to play it online because you have to kind of with troops and with actions rather than just like diplomatic words. You have to really with your strategic play be clever. And that's
and also it's almost like a mind game. You're trying to communicate to the other players what your intentions are or bluff them with your intentions.
Yes.
But it has to be your actual action, in-game actions, as opposed to if we were sitting across a table and I could just say like, I don't care about Asia. You can have it, but like I'm going after here and here and here, and like you make it very clear what you're doing. Or like I watch your games where players are trying to indicate like, can you let me cut through here? Like, I'm going to attack you, but just to go on my way someplace else. Yeah. You have to really, it's laborious to try and show them when in a game, you'd say like, look, I need to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah.
I'm going to attack you right here. I'm not looking to start anything. I'm just trying to get through. And like, I'm not going to set up shop. I'm just going to be on my way. But
that's probably one of the most frustrating things of playing online when you're playing with a newer player and you're, clearly kind of in an alliance, but you need to collect a card. And you're like, look, I'm not trying to break your border, okay? I need a card. That's it. I'm not going to get behind on the card collecting game, but I'm not going to just be continually breaking your border. I just need a card. And like the more sophisticated, like seasoned players on Risk Online get that, and so you'll get in this mutual exchange kind of scenario.
Like this,
whereas the newer players,
this is the no man's land that's always going to get like taken every turn. Right? Exactly.
And but the newer players get super offended with that, like one move, and then it's like it's impossible to do an ally game, with a lot of newer players.
If you're playing strictly like a continent game.
Yeah,
like everyone's trying to just hold a continent. There is no way not to break that because you need your card every turn. Yep. That's non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Look, if I have the ability, I'm taking a country this turn. Like it's happening because I need my card. I'm not going to get behind on the cards, like you said.
Yeah. And the game is all about the cards and the continents, and the key thing is, like you were saying, it's like you kind of want to. One really good indicator whether you're going to win or not is within like the first 3 turns, you need to either have a continent or you need to have a giant freaking army floating around in Asia.
Right.
And you're going to make the slower play for a continent. But if you're in any other position, 3 or 4 turns in, you're done. Like,
I think, you got to start making stuff happen fast. And that's why, and usually also online games, I don't know how they are about it. Most of the physical games I've played, you get randomly assigned like your initial countries.
Yeah, I think that's the best games. The ones that you pick are kind of lame.
And I think very quickly everyone looks at the board and just intuitively understands, like, this is the land grab now. Like, I need to patch something together.
Yeah.
And that's also when you're in person, there's a lot of conversation of like, look, my best shot is south.
Oh, I think you cut out, or maybe I cut out. Hello? Dee is in chat. Oh, I think we lost Gary. Hopefully he'll come back. Hopefully this is oh, here we go. We got Gary back. I don't know how the connection. I don't know. You got disconnected. You froze for a second. So
oh, weird.
Yeah.
All I was saying is, I think when you're looking at a physical board, it's very obvious to every player what their best shot is.
Yes, and except new players.
And very rarely is it at odds. Like, usually someone sees, like, look, I'm not happy about it, but Europe is my best play. Or I'm not happy about it, but North America's, whatever. And usually in those first 2 turns, it's sort of like, all right, well, we're going to consolidate these first few turns.
Yes.
Like, that's all we're doing. We're not trying to thwart anybody. We're not trying to start shit. I didn't want Australia, but that's my best chance. So I'm taking Australia these next couple turns. Okay. Yes. And everyone kind of does their thing. And then the game really starts like round 4 or something. But
no, I love that. It's one of the things that makes it so fascinating and fun. I'm glad you're down to talk Risk. I don't get to talk Risk with a lot of people. It's one of the things that makes it so fun to me is that, and again, like, that's kind of a big indicator to me of like a newer player or an older player. Like, an older player who's played Risk for a long time understands, like, this person is in the best position to take North America. Yeah. I'm not going to screw with that. I'm going to let them start accruing. And until I have an army to kind of make a threat where we don't just kill each other and then neither of us win, I'm not going to hit them. But what I will do is strategically head to the area I'm in. Problem with newer players is they have no idea which part on the board they need to take.
Right.
And so they start getting aggressive real early. And again, they just kind of like, they'll go get too much too fast and they won't be able to hold it.
Well,
and that's some of the funnest players to play against, though, because you'll literally watch them just thinking, man, I'm taking North America. And it's just all 1s with like 5s at the corner and everybody else has armies of like 20. Right. And you're like, oh, dude, you are like that. That's the guy the next turn. You're like, I'm not letting you hold that. Are you kidding me?
Well, or just retaliate and wipe them out. I mean, I think sometimes you get, and everyone's done this. It was your first or second or third game of Risk.
Yeah.
Where you see an opportunity in the early game.
Yeah.
Where you have 7 armies and this guy right next to you has 2 or 3, and like otherwise he's got 1s everywhere else, and you see an opportunity. It's like, I can completely destabilize him like right off the bat. Like I can basically abort him before he's even gets some footing. And you quickly learn it's gonna cost you some troops. And now you might take them out, but now you're wildly disadvantaged.
Yeah, that's actually one of my biggest weaknesses. Yeah, one of my biggest weaknesses and something I've been getting better at is when you see that opportunity to take someone's cards and just wipe them off the map is so tempting. Because you see the map of it. And then here's my weakness. So my weakness isn't that move.
Next turn. You've got to think, then what? Then what happens?
But my weakness isn't the first one. I've figured out pretty well how to do that. It's when I'm in a scenario where I could do 2 at once.
Yeah.
And it's too much to say no to.
Right.
And then I've had so many times where I'm like, I know I shouldn't keep going, but I'm just going to take this other guy too. Right. And that's usually when I'm like, I'm outplayed. And that's a weakness I've gotten better at, because when you see like the math of it and you're like, you can literally take 2 out and get all of their cards. It's so tempting, but
usually though,
rarely is it worth it
error,
unless you're playing whatever it is where you're like basing bonuses increase each card.
Yeah. I forgot what that's called.
Progressive. That's it.
Progressive. Usually, though, the margin of error in those scenarios is so slim where if you just have a few bad die rolls on your quest,
you're done.
You're done. Yeah, like it's not going to happen. So, no, I think this is something we've talked about before in chat, but I think the thing that I've worked on the most with my risk game is because I do tend to be a little bit more of a conservative player. I think I'm very practical, and I'm never shy about interfering with someone else trying to get their game going. Like, because I know that they're getting their game going is not any good for me. But I generally, it's in small ways. Like I'm more just a mild pain in the ass. Like I'm never like that guy who's just attacking everybody. But I'm just not letting you just do whatever you want. You know, and that seems to be the place I'm comfortable. What I've had to get better at is recognizing, and there's a point in every game where this happens, if you go all in right now, you could win. And, and it's not comfortable for me usually, but it's like, but I at least recognizing that window of like, you know what, like I could probably shut this down right now if I go big, if I go ahead and like commit. So.
Which I've gotten much better at because there's a mathematics to it where it's like, you know, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you it, even though you know it probably. But if you don't, it's like once you're at the point where you're double, basically everybody's troops combined. Like, so if that's one person on the board, once you're double, there is literally no way they can win if you just aggressively attack. It doesn't matter if they're holding a continent. It doesn't matter. Like at that point, it is game time. It is time to clear the board. It is time to zero yourself out. Because there's no mathematical way they can win at that point. And so once you see that, it's go time. And it's like, if you don't go hard, though, you could lose at that point. But that's the point where you just have to go all out, zero out everything. Like, you know.
That's why, though, my philosophy is, I'm not going to try and just be a lunatic and attack everyone and be a maniac and get knocked out in the 4th round. But I'm strongly against, and this is something if you're playing in person, I will always be telling other players this. It's like, you are letting him build your gallows. Like right now. Like you're watching it happen. Like, don't let him take that. Don't let him hold that. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is the monster that's going to eat you in 10 rounds. Like, you can't. So that's always kind of in the back of my mind when I'm playing is, no, I'm not letting you amass this enormous army. Like, no. Like, I'm not going to try and go crazy and knock you out of the game and, like, risk myself. But I'm going to be an obstacle. I'm going to push back, you know, where it's like, I'm not going to allow you just unfettered growth.
Well, and a good player is going to know how to work with that because, like, again, like, you know, like a worse player, once they get consolidation, like a good example would be like a player who, like, there's 4 players left, but they're going to hold North America and they're going to stubbornly hold on to South America. And then they're just going to start being dicks and attacking everybody. That's usually the first person to get taken out because no one in their right mind is going to let you hold North and South America at the same time. If there's 4 players on the board, that's probably not going to happen. No. It's probably just not going to happen.
No.
So like a better player would be like amassing like a crap load of troops in North America very strategically so that it's not freaking people out. And then they're going to take everything. But like when you're kind of barely getting a big bit of power, when you overplay it, it just ends up to your detriment if there's a lot of players on the board. When it's only 2 players, it's a lot more no holes barred, you know, because it is kind of game time. That's where it gets real contentious because nobody's pretending you're being friends when there's only 2 players.
And that's also why I find a 2-player game fairly boring.
Yeah,
to me, the more the better.
The best are 6. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like all the players that we can get into play are great. And one of there were a group of guys I used to play Risk with all the time. And it was just it was a normal part of our play where at some point it was usually like, I don't know, 60% of the way through a game.
Yeah.
There's some player who's clearly starting to pull ahead. An army's getting a little big, or they've got 2 continents going now, or something's happening where it's like there's some momentum.
Yeah.
And you collectively, like, kind of as a joke, like just for the fun of it, but also like very seriously, like you'd started trying to, it's like, okay, remember guys, the theme of this round is get Josh.
Yep.
You know, because like it's like you're recognizing like Josh is did you see he's got 57 armies? And
you're pretty much like, guys, if we let, you know, and okay, here's the thing too. You could always play the turtle strategy, right?
Right.
But the problem with the turtle strategy, especially this happens less so online, but the problem with the turtle strategy when you're playing at a table full of people is if you're too much of a pacifist, you're begging people to just suicide you. Because it's like at some point, if you're in a game and like everybody's taking down the top guy, that's kind of the rule of Risk is like when there's the top guy, we all kind of team up to take out the top guy. Because if you let that guy accelerate power too much, everybody's done. And so, but if there's the pacifist, that can be this is the part of Risk that, you know, it's frustrating when you're playing and you're playing really well and somebody just suicides their stack into you. But there is a part of it that's not random. Sometimes it is, especially with new players. Sometimes they just get frustrated and just suicide you. And that's kind of out of your control, especially when you're playing online. But especially at a table, like if you're not going to contribute in that collective effort, don't be surprised when everybody's like, all right, guys, whatever. This guy's the most powerful, but this person's annoying. They're just sitting back. They're not doing anything. They're not contributing. Let's take them out for fun. Well, that's always going to happen too.
With a turtle player or a pacifist player is at some point later in the game, there are people who are very clear-eyed and realize like, I'm doing okay, but I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
And so that's the person you approach and it's like, please torpedo the turtle over there.
Yeah.
Like, please, like, you know, or the other thing, and I've done this many times myself, if you're playing well and you're getting to a point where you're getting a little rich in terms of assets, it's not a big deal to cash in cards and blow them on a turtle. Like, like not even fortify. It's just like, no, I'm good. I got my borders. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm just going to cash in. I'm going to spend all of this nailing the pacifist over there because someone has to deal with this eventually. Yeah. You know, and you know, I might as well do it now. It doesn't cost me that much. I'm rich in troops and cards. I might as well just, you know, this will be fun.
I love it. That's so funny that you're so almost similarly interested in Risk. That's interesting to me. That's fascinating because it was just like an obsession I got, you know, the last year or so.
Well, unfortunately, it gets hard. Like as I've stated, I really favor playing it in person.
Yeah.
And as you well know, like, you get older and like it's harder and harder to wrangle everybody for a game. So.
Yeah, and I think just statistically, it's just hard to have hangouts with friends when you're, you know, in your 40s or 50s. It's just the more people involved, like the less likely the thing is gonna be.
People have kids. People can't stay up all night playing Risk. You know, and like they can come over for a beer and dinner, and then they gotta go. You know, and it's not a thing where it's like, no, we were gonna play. I mean, that was in college, you know, you're playing Monopoly or Risk till 2 a.m.
Yeah, and you know, I remember having roommates, you know, in college where we'd have a Risk board set up and it would be there for the week. So we would be like, you know, playing like an epic game that would last like a week. You know, obviously the ones I play online are usually like at most an hour. If they're beyond that, I might suicide people, you know.
What slows down the physical game is screwing around with the pieces and the die rolling and the cards.
Yeah,
like what's nice about the digital version is it automates all of that.
Oh, none of the math.
You can get a game done pretty quick, you know.
Yeah, and the annoying thing about the biggest downside of Risk is the arguments about math. It's like, or you know, like just the die rolls and like doing all the math and stuff. It's kind of like D&D, which was always really fun, but like the downside of D&D is just figuring out, you know, everybody's hit points and all of that stuff. And at some point it just gets kind of like, are we even having fun right now? Or are we just doing math? Like, did we just get tricked into doing homework?
The tavern. Yeah. Like we barely, like almost nothing has happened. We've been spending so much time doing charisma checks with the bartender and arguing over who carries the gauntlets of ogre strength. You know, and now it's been 4 hours. We haven't done anything. But.
You're like, guys, this was supposed to be an epic adventure, not a conversation at a bar. You know,
right.
Yeah. But with a good GM, usually they'll cater that. Like, a good GM will kind of like let the math slide a little bit. Or they stay on the math, but like they do it so efficiently you barely notice. A bad GM, it's like you're just doing math homework and there's wizards.
Right.
What did you play, Gary? Like, what was your favorite character to play in
Dungeons and Dragons? I liked fighter mages.
Nice.
So I liked this. So this would have been.
I could see you as a mage type guy. I feel like I would have guessed that's probably what you would have. Your core on Final Fantasy would be pretty mage strong. I feel.
Yeah, I was never comfortable with a pure mage. I always liked the idea of someone who had a sword and could do a little bit of spell casting.
Got it. And I'm blinking out on what it is. The red one. What is the red one in?
In
Final Fantasy.
In Final Fantasy, God.
Anyway, it wasn't a fighter, right? It wasn't the mage.
It was a barbarian or something. I don't.
There's a barbarian for sure, but there's also like a red one that's like a mage, but it can fight. And I'm forgetting.
That's right. Again, I forget. Was it like a paladin or something, or was
it something like that?
I don't remember.
Any video game nerds out there, feel free to.
I have
virtually
to admit,
shame me.
I was not. Final Fantasy was not my game until Final Fantasy VI.
Okay. That's when it actually got good. I'm a fan of 1, which is a terrible game, but I love it.
I've heard it's not great. I wanted to go back just out of curiosity. No, my games in that era were, I liked the Ultima games, and I liked Phantasy Star for the Sega consoles.
Nice.
And
so were you more of like a Sega kid?
I had both. Nice. The Nintendo and the Sega Master System. So on the Nintendo, I liked Dragon Warrior and Ultima Exodus. On the Sega Master System, I liked Phantasy Star. So
nice. There used to be a divide, kind of like between Star Trek and Star Wars back in the day.
I know.
Between Sega
I never
and
was a
Nintendo.
console warrior. I never. I didn't care. Like
you never got into the console gang wars.
No, I loved all video games. I always tended to have both, whatever the main two were at the time. So I had, I had the Nintendo and Sega Master System as a kid, and then in high school I had both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and so on and so forth. So
I love it. Oh man, so how is the not working on comics? Is it going okay, or did you already start?
I'm actually I'm not doing the intensive kind of stuff that you are. I'm gearing up. I'm trying to get everything fully fleshed out so I'm ready to do my first draft of the script for the next one.
Nice. Yeah, I noticed you were like watching a movie and kind of research for it.
Yeah.
Because this one's going to be kind of more military story, right?
Yeah, it's focused on, it's a group of soldiers. So I'm very excited. I'm doing a bunch of research on that right now while organizing my notes and kind of dialing in the themes I want to talk about. And in this one in particular, there's really two lead characters. As with every D versus M, there's one that's really the POV character, but the story is really about these two guys and what they represent and how they play off of each other in this group of guys.
Nice. And this is the one that's going to have the big reveal, right? Where it's like, we're the dinosaurs and Mars bots.
Right. That's a spoiler.
We were the dinosaurs and Mars bots the whole time.
Yeah, the whole time.
We thought they were the Martians. We were the Martians.
Right. We're actually on Mars. All of these books so far is on Mars. It's all backwards. I had my concept.
Ooh, I like that twist. Okay, so like this is basically the future in Mars, and the Martians are actually humans that have evolved on
humans.
Earth, invading Mars.
Yeah, we made dinosaurs, and the Martians made humans. It's all.
I love it.
It'll all make perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's. I had the concept for. Well, I have the concepts for all 6. I had the concept for this one, the 4th one, years ago. Now it's just fleshing it out, and then also simultaneously doing all this research on the military aspect and figuring out which aha moments I get from that.
Yeah.
Can be layered in to sort of enhance the story. Like what are the things? So like the other night I was watching a documentary about this outpost in Afghanistan during our war there.
I think I've seen that documentary. What was it called?
That one was I think it's Koragal or something like that.
Yeah. It kind of embeds like in the,
or something.
It's kind of depressing too, because it's like you never really see the enemy. Like
it's but fascinating, and what's kind of ideal for me and the kind of storyteller I am with these, it really was the soldiers talking about their experiences, which is, perfect, because I want that. I don't really need to see like what does combat look like. I want to hear them talk about it. I need to hear like their impressions of it,
the dialogue,
the feeling, awesome. and also you're trying to on a small level you're trying to pick up vocab.
That's an incredible documentary, by the way. If anybody's
watching, really good.
It's really very moving, and kind of shows you a lot of the more kind of the wars we've been having in the Middle East, like what those kind of look like.
Yeah,
it's just a very bizarre situation of like being on a hillside and just having pot shots taken at you all the time,
all day long, and when you approach something like this, like these books I'm reading or a documentary like that, with a story in mind, like I think the story is about something like this.
Yeah.
You tend to, you react to the whole thing and you have interesting thoughts about the whole thing, but you really key in on the stuff that's relevant to the story that you want to tell. Like,
so you're like,
oh, that's
it's almost like you're watching it with like a filter, right? Where it's like it's almost like okay, we're paying attention to like vocabulary or something like that, and then you kind of zone out.
That's all you're hearing,
and that's all you hear.
You're just hearing all the interesting acronyms and the things they're saying. Like there was one I wrote down. I sat there with my notebook the whole time writing stuff down, because like at one point one guy was talking about having to move a super heavy thing from here to there. Yeah. And when they got done, he kind of like sighed. And he's like, "Whew, that's a smoker." And it's like, I don't even know what that means, but I'm writing that down. Just like, that's interesting. I've never heard that expression. Like, apparently, like if something's exhausting, like it's a smoker. Yeah. There was like, they're taught all this vocabulary, but that's like, to me, like the most surface level thing. But there are ideas I'm trying to find in there where it's like, oh, that's an interesting take, or I never thought of it that way. Yeah. Or that reveals an aspect of these guys' experiences that is very portable to my story, to give it that dimension of like, ultimately the high bar is a soldier, a war vet reads this book and says like, this seems like guys I served with. Yeah, that would be ideal. That's the ambition. So
yeah, I think like, when you were writing female characters, your hope was that like a female could read it and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is a."
Say, like, I know that chick, or I've been that chick, or whatever. Yeah, and like,
and it's similar. Like if you're writing like a soldier, you'd feel most effective if you're actually like able to have it at least slide with soldiers, Yes. Instead of them being like, "You don't hold a gun that way," Yeah. Like because my brother was a cop. He had trouble watching action movies because it's just like you would shoot yourself. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Because like everybody's holding their gun with like one hand and just like,
me too,
or like two guns, pow pow pow, and you're like, this is insane. Like nobody is gonna do that,
Yeah, and I think like one of the things that there were a lot of things I got from that documentary, but one thing that I definitely want to not only I don't want to say I want to integrate it because it was already part of my original concept, but it will enhance it. I noticed watching it that there is a deep connection and brotherhood that these guys form, and this that almost metastasizes into an alienation from anyone else who hasn't had this experience.
Yes.
And that was an idea, this idea of like, and you see it with police officers too, this idea of like, we've both done this job. We're the only ones who understand. Nobody else is ever no one out there is ever gonna understand the situation. Not your wife, not your kids, not your people you meet on the street, not anybody else. We're the only ones who are ever gonna get each other ever for the rest of your life. And there is something really lonely about that. And I thought that's something I can use. That's something that works with the story I have in mind. And like I think I can play with like that. I can play with that in interesting ways and embed that in there. And there's
also a really interesting relationship with from what I remember in that documentary, with the point guy, and then the guy, like the guy is kind of telling the guy how to angle his sights. Yeah. And then the shooter, like with like snipers, and that whole relationship between the two, to me, watching that documentary was fascinating, where it's like those guys were tightly knit because like both will easily get just taken out very quickly if they're wrong. But it's like a really weird kind of patient back and forth of this communication between those two people that I never really imagined it being like so kind of inaccurate, yet like way more precise than you would imagine, where it's like, okay, 2 clicks to the left, 2 clicks to like, and it's like, but there's this whole dynamic where they're also at threat, you know. It's a fascinating, that would be
there's
really
a
good.
line in it. One of the guys says, you know, like these are guys he's known, like they've known each other for months, you know, and he's like, it's my wife or my family, like my mom would never be able to understand that I would die for any one of these guys that I've known for 4 months, you know, and like, and that, I think that's like that's another doorway into a bigger perspective on like what kind of lives these guys are living. Yeah. And that was, again, something, because I knew, and this doesn't spoil really anything, but I knew with the one that I want to write, I really wanted to explore this idea that these guys, the next Steve vs. Them takes place kind of at the tail end of the whole Dinosaur-Martian War. And everyone appreciates that it's winding down. Yeah. And I wanted to explore this kind of the strange mix of feelings that they'd be having over the fact that, well, this is great. It's winding down, like the war is over, like that kind of thing. But at the same time, we'll never be able to tell these stories to anybody. No one will ever be able to know what we did here. No one will ever understand, you know, and we're going to get folded back into the regular military, and we're going to be saluting guys that were like in high school when we were clearing alien warships. We're going to be over in Afghanistan when like we were fighting like alien invaders. No one's ever going to get it. And like those people are going to be people we're going to be saluting. Like this, I wanted to talk about that just deep, no pun intended for D versus M, alienation, you know, of like these guys just realizing like, oh, we're completely on a weird cultural desert island. You know, like there's no one who's ever going to understand this except for each other. Yeah. And I thought that's like, and that documentary with those little moments of like, I would die for these guys. I've known them for 4 months. Yeah. Like that's like, that helps. Like that helps me kind of crystallize like that whole notion of like what this kind of is about. Yeah. And it's so important, like in the writing stage or the pre-writing stage where you're kind of being a sponge for a little bit and kind of absorbing a lot of different stuff and also just kind of getting in the vibe of it too. So when you write, you kind of, it becomes a little more fluid. Yeah. Okay, guys, I do want to say, if you haven't picked up 1979 by Gary Hodges, you should. It's genius. Yes, so you guys should pick that up. And then I was going to put on a trailer, if you don't mind, because I have to use the restroom very quickly. Do it. Yeah, and I'm going to give you guys way too much information because I can. So anyhow, here is the trailer for
let's watch Jim Luhan's trailer. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Okay, here's
Wordzoid.
Wordzoid. We'll be right back. Thank you guys. If you haven't yet, you're watching this live, hit that like button. Right? Okay. All right. I'll be right back.
Well, Peter, since I'm such a big music fan, I'm going to have to go with Karen Carpenter. Oh, Stu, I'm sorry. That's the incorrect answer. Trish, what you got for us?
I'm gonna go with Kim Gordon.
All right, let's check that answer. Kim Gordon. Do we have a Kim Gordon? Yes, and that means you're our new Wordzoid champion, Trish. Dale, tell Trish what she's won. Trish, you've won a copy of 2 stories, a memoir of faith and mental illness. Handwritten, hand-drawn, and handed to you by artist and writer Joshua Kemble. But wait, that's not all. You've also won a copy of Jacob's Apartment, the story of a doomed romance. What happens when you take Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and put it in a blender with Ghost World? You get Jacob's Apartment, written and illustrated by Joshua Kemble. Trish, thank you for playing Wordzoid.
All right, great job, Trish.
I was told I was gonna get a lifetime supply of paper towels.
Love Wordzoid. Oh, wait, I think I see him. I think I see him coming back. Don't anyone tell him what we were talking about before we... Oh, Josh, welcome
How's
back.
it going? was there some deep...
Yeah, like the trailer just ended. It's funny you brought up 79. I thought maybe you would appreciate this more than most. I was flipping through it the other day, just like yesterday or the day before. It's been out a couple months now, something like that. I am finally, after this much time, however long it's been, 2 months, at a point where I can sort of look at it and just kind of appreciate it.
And enjoy it. Yeah, that takes a while.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like where before that it's still like too fresh and you're still thinking, you're remembering all the decisions you made and you're still questioning whether they were the right ones and you're still too much in like making mode.
Yeah.
This was the first time where I was flipping through and I was like, you know what? This isn't bad. Like that kind of like actually kind of enjoying the accomplishment and feeling like that's okay work.
It's interesting how that's like a process to get to, because there's this initial rush, you know, when you get the thing printed and you see it in print, there's like this excitement, but also scrutiny with which you're viewing it.
Yes.
And it is interesting. You know, I've had like my first comic, Numb, took me like 2 years to like look back at it and be like, that was a pretty good comic. Like for the time, you know, like for what I was going through at the time. And like, it was my first like serious crack at a comic. Yeah. It's like, I can kind of see the potential a little bit that like the Zarek Foundation saw, you know, at the time, but it's thinking, like, but it was the longest time for like 2 years. I was just like, I've cheated. Yeah. Like, I have no idea what people saw in this. Why the hell would I be in this? You know, like, and then like later on, you're like, okay, you're able to kind of see it for what it is. You know, it's interesting, you know, not that you like suddenly think you're a genius.
No.
Just kind of enjoy it almost as a reader, you know?
Yeah. And the shame of it is usually when you finish it, you throw yourself right into promotion.
Yeah.
And you're still kind of all emotionally messy about everything. You know, it was still just, it was a difficult birthing process.
Yeah.
Where now I feel like I could promote it better now.
Yeah.
You know, now that I've had some distance and I look at it, it's like, no, I feel good about this.
Yeah.
And but it took, that long to get there where I feel that way.
And the irony is once you're kind of at that comfort level with the last book, you immediately will start jumping into the discomfort of the next one.
Of the next, right.
Because we're insane.
Yeah, no, I know. And I'm trying not to think about it because there's no good that would come of dwelling on it. But yeah, I'm really dying to see how long the script of the next one ends up being.
Oh, give me 2 seconds. I just realized I need to make sure my door's locked. Hang on.
You bet.
I just realized that I like absent-mindedly just closed the door and didn't lock
Yeah.
It's just an interesting phase to get to, you know.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see where you go with it. I would throw, weirdly enough, have you read Berlin by Jason Lutz yet?
I haven't yet. No, it's on my long time, to read list, but I have not read it yet.
There is a panel sequence in that I feel like you could totally steal for your next one. I'll just describe this sequence.
Okay.
It's not like a big plot thing.
Let me bump it up while you're telling me. Let me bump it up on my Amazon wish list.
You should, because I think it's one of the best comics ever published, like especially for historical fiction. It's just crazy research. The paneling, it aesthetically kind of aligns with your style as well, because he uses very heavy blacks, very line based.
Okay.
It's very line based art. But there's a scene where a character who's a kind of important character in it gets killed. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
But the way he shows them get shot, it's like at a rally. It's again, this won't ruin the book, but it's like a rally between socialists and Nazis at like pre-Hitler Germany.
Uh-huh.
And he's a socialist, and he shows up at this rally, and there's this lady who falls down, and he goes to pick her up, and he gets shot just randomly by like a stray bullet in this like fight. And the way he shows it is there's a panel, and he's kind of reaching down, and it just shows him. And the next panel, there's just a dot. It's just a black dot.
Yeah.
And then the next sequence is you see from his viewpoint, it tilts down. Like the panel actually tilts to like frame. And then it just goes black. And it's like but the way that he showed a bullet hitting a person was one of the most profound things I've seen in comics. And I don't think I've ever seen it since. Yeah. It literally just showed like an actual bullet impact, like it would really happen.
Like it would really look. Right.
Just a dot. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it was like, and the way that he did the frame twice, I just was like, if I ever have a story with bullets, I want to use that. Like, because it's just so impactful. And it's so weird that nobody's done that in comics before or since that I've seen. I don't know if you can visualize from my description. It's probably not as good.
No, it's a good picture. And it's funny. I've thought to myself that, and I almost had an opportunity to in this latest one, but not really where I could organically do it. But I've often sort of regretted. I've had some visions in my head of like how I would depict a shooting. And I've sometimes been disappointed that most of the firearm stuff you see in these books is ray weapons, which behave totally differently. Yeah, like there have been times I've wanted to have human on human violence to really explore something I talk about in videos a lot, which is integrating kind of day job knowledge into the comic. Yeah, and really trying to show that in a way that I don't think people have seen in comics very often, if at all. And but no, there's few opportunities to with D versus M. There's lots of opportunities for violence, but there's few opportunities of
human on human violence.
Yeah, human on human real world violence. And yeah, exactly. I feel
like if you're doing, again, and this is in no way, you haven't written the script yet. So, but I mean, I feel like if you're showing soldiers, there's going to be friendly fire. I mean, there just would have to be,
There, I can tell you there won't be friendly fire in this one, but there will be a heap and helping of violence, and there will be
blood, ladies and gentlemen.
There will be blood. Yeah, there will be blood, and there will be. Actually, I'm walking that back. I don't want to get into spoilers. There will be violence. Yeah, there will, like it's it's D versus M. Things go sideways often in D versus M. But
I do want to say, I think this was brought up, when we've had you on in the past, like on Artcasters and stuff like that. But I do think there's something very unique about the way you approach violence in your comic. I feel like, especially in 1979, there was just something about it that was so real. That it was disturbing. It wasn't like, oh yay, let's like get in this big fist fight. Oh crap, things are going down. I mean, there's some moments like that. You know, you got some alien death rays that are like, just completely engulfing a person, and it's kind of fun to draw, I'm sure, and fun to read.
Right.
There's also just like very real violence, in the sense of like just like somebody defending themselves, and just what would naturally happen in just the raw defense of your life, like with no options and no training. And it is so like, it's so profoundly executed that I think it leaves a very unsettling taste in your mouth,
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's
I think that's a
skill.
skill.
I'm not a huge fan of, at least when it comes to my work. Like when it comes to other people's work, I'm not dogmatic about this. But when it comes to my work, I'm not a huge fan of using violence pornographically. Where it's like, I'm not looking to do it to delight people or to make them kind of like, that's awesome. Like
you're not doing Evil Dead, okay? Like, and there's nothing wrong with Evil Dead, but it's not like an Evil Dead.
It's just not what it's two things. First of all, it's just, I think my creative taste when I'm doing my own work is I would rather use violence in the way that we encounter it in the real world, which is disturbing and scary and unsettling and, and like horrific and like, I want to use it in that way.
Yeah.
Also, the kinds of stories I'm trying to tell with D versus M. Like, I'm trying to tell human stories, and it's not a human story to be like, it was awesome, his head came apart. Like, that's not a human story. A human story is like, it was the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. That's a human story. So, like, and that's what I'm trying to do with this. If I was doing a different kind of comic, maybe I would be approaching violence differently. But I don't think I would. I do think that my day job and my experience makes me feel some responsibility, appropriate or not, to try and treat violence with, for lack of a better word, a little bit of dignity. Yeah. Where it's like, no, I think I'm going to play it straight.
And honestly, it's refreshing because there's so many action movies and stuff where like you have like heroes getting like think about like James Bond, for instance, right? Where it's like, how many times does James Bond in like one James Bond movie get the butt of a gun like crushed against his skull to knock him out? And then an hour later, he's just coherent. Everything's good. It didn't split his scalp. It's just like, it's like, bonk, okay, knocked out. And like, it's great. Like, again, like if we're watching like Batman, the TV show, that's great. Right. But it gets a little tiresome in like, where that becomes the norm. That's just so polar opposite from what that would do to someone. I love that about D versus M is like the fact that if you had somebody getting knocked out with a gun in one of your scripts, they're not just recovering quickly from that.
They're probably going to end up in the hospital. And I think that's more interesting. I think that's more interesting. I think it's more dramatically interesting, and I think it adds stakes back because, again, like I love, one of my favorite movies of all time is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes, it's great.
Indiana Jones gets shot in the shoulder, and he ties like a gauze thing around it, and he's fine next day. Like, to me, it's like you would be incapacitated. Yeah. Like you would be useless. Yeah. You would be absolutely and
potentially, at risk of like a massive infection that might kill you.
Right? So, exactly.
Yeah, you're not just going to be like, oh, tie it off, we're good.
And I love that movie, but again, like it's eliminated stakes. There's no stakes anymore. There's nothing you can do to Indiana Jones now that's like makes you worry about him because the guy's been shot 8 times and he's been punched in the face, 150 times by guys twice as big as him, and he's fine. He's fine. Like, he's fallen off of trucks. Like, he's fine. So you never now. Whereas, for example, D versus M, and there's no better or worse to this. It's just the kind of story I'm trying to tell. With D versus M, someone gets punched in the face. Like, that's a problem. Someone gets shot. That's a problem. Like, they're in danger. They could die. Like, this is not good. And like that adds, I like people when they're reading D versus M to think a little bit like a George R.R. Martin thing. Like, who knows what Gary's going to do? Yeah. Like, who knows what he's going to do to his characters? Bad things happen,
Yeah. And I want to clarify this to my audience too, because like I had the audacity, Gary, of having a political commentary stream. Oh my gosh.
Outrageous.
Which to me is hilarious, because I'm like, I don't think the people who might have been freaked out about that have watched my channel. I mean, I literally did an animation of Trump eating people who were Nazis. So I have a political stance that I've taken for a very long time, and I don't tend to bend on it. But also people made this assumption, like a couple people made the assumption like, oh my gosh, all you do is hang out with like left-leaning people. And I'm like, dude, like half my friends are like right-leaning. I live in a red district. Like, I wouldn't be able to live where I live if I couldn't get along with people with differing viewpoints. My point is, for anybody who might have taken that as like, you said something left-leaning, therefore no right. I want to be clear about this too. Just because Gary's saying this is the way he writes doesn't mean he's trashing Indiana Jones. Like we said, we both
like I said, one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I think there's a place for like serial fun, and not like, it would be depressing to go see like a Disney movie where like, there's a fist fight in it and the person gets their jaw broken and is just, taken out of the story for like half the year because they're like getting dental work. That's like $20,000.
Yeah, I don't need to see Batman and traction. Like, I don't need, like, that's not what I want from that.
Although that might be a funny one-page comic for Christopher Runciman to do, would be like the superhero after the fight. Like, just, show like but it should start with like, a Batman-esque era superhero that's like very cartoony, and it's like, pow, Zoc. And then the next is like the 6-month recovery, like in the hospital.
Well, and it's funny, especially maybe it's also an age thing. Yeah. Like, for example, I have my annual physical coming up next week. And I know one of the things I want to talk to the doctor about is, I think I did something to my shoulder and I'm getting kind of pins and needles like down my arm. Maybe I picked up something heavy. Probably it's a ergonomic thing. It's like, this is my drawing and writing hand. I don't know. I don't know what I did. I know like probably all roads lead to physical therapy. So I'll be in physical therapy for a few months trying to figure out what the fuck I did to my shoulder.
Yep.
And so I screwed up my shoulder and having experiences, and I'm going to be in physical therapy probably for a few months from drawing. Like, Indiana Jones is getting shot. Like, what do you think that looks like? That's where it's just like, if you're trying to play something realistically, like, I think you need to treat violence for what it is. And I also, kind of circling back to something I said earlier, I'm
Scott circling. We should start
especially
saying
as I get older, I am less and less comfortable doing what I would describe as pornographic violence. Now, and when I say pornographic, I don't mean like it's turning people on in a sexual way. That's not what I mean. I mean it's attractive and enticing, and it's like it's activating a pleasure response.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Like a glorification in a way, right?
Yeah. So for example, now someone will like say, and again, different strokes. I'm not saying anything's bad about this, but like, for example, Red Room. By Piscor. I feel like I've aged out of it.
I have too.
Yeah,
I think you and I might have talked about this before, but just in case we haven't, it's like I was doing a comic book signing at a store, and I hadn't really looked at Piscor's Red Room. I like Piscor's like hip hop family tree, so I was like, sweet. I finally got a chance to look at it, and I instantly was horrified and grossed out by it. Not interested in it, but equally, I was really happy that there's a horror book like that out there for a 7th grader. And I
that's
don't
what
mean that
for
as a
anyone who
trash
thought-
on Piscor. I think that is literally the type of horror comic that should exist for a certain age range. I just don't think it's me.
I love that Red Room exists.
Yes.
And I think it's well done at the thing it's trying to be.
Yeah. And it is
And
offensive, and it should be, right?
And I find it a little, it's not my taste. Like,
Yeah.
So, and that's fine. I'm not going to say it's bad. Like, I'm sure it's good. I don't know. I have no way to evaluate it. It's just not my thing. And it's not how I would want to handle violence because of who I am and because where I've come from and because what I'm trying to do. Like, it's a different, we're playing totally different games.
Yep.
Like him and me. So it's just a difference.
And I think if you told Ed Piscor that it was like really offensive and glorifying violence, he'd be like, hell yeah, it is. Because that's kind of the goal. Like it is supposed to be horrific.
Yeah, and I don't know. I have to admit I haven't watched a lot. Like I don't know if he's trying to be outrageous. I don't know if he's trying to be satirical. I don't know if it's all of the above. But then that's fine. Again, cool. Yeah. That needs to exist.
Yes.
That kind of comic should exist, and it's just not my kind of, it's not something I care about. So
point being, like,
it's out there.
When I read it at the shop, I looked through, 10 or 15 pages and I was like, this is incredibly done. It's really well drawn. It's horrific, which should exist. There should be horror comics, especially ones that you feel like you have to hide under the table so your parents don't, like that is great. The only thing is I didn't buy it after that. No. I was like, also, weirdly enough, if my son had it, I would take it away from him, at least at the age he's at right now.
No, I wouldn't let my nephew look at it for another 10 years.
But it should exist.
Here's something. I've said everything I've said about Red Room.
Yeah.
I backed the first one on Kickstarter. Like I was like, because I'm an easy sell when it comes to like, weird indie book, like someone's trying to get made. Yeah, I'll pitch in. Like even though, and I knew then I was like, I don't think this is for me.
Yeah.
But like I love cartoonist kayfabe. And I love that he's doing this weird, gritty, gross underground thing.
Yes, and there need to be weird, gritty, gross underground things. And actually, like the one thing I'm also happy about is it is literally weird, gritty, and gross. Whereas I think there's a lot of people who like play at it. Yeah. And that's one thing I'll also applaud Piscor for is like he's not playing. Like it will offend you. Like it will freak you out. It is gross. It is hideous.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
And it should be. I think we talked about, it's probably been years, but I said one of my pet peeves with comics is prudishness.
Yes.
In any level. Like when people, you can see it's a scene where you should be able to see this person's naughty bits or whatever, and it's like carefully concealed, or something's violent, but we're not going to show it really. Like that turns me off. Like I just, like, let's all be grown-ups.
Yeah.
He is not prudish, like it's if he has an idea, he's drawing it in exquisite detail. So it's like I value that. I saw Paul in here.
Paul's been making a lot of
smash her face. That was a great touch. I enjoyed that scene a lot in '79. And how about nudity? Any nudity, Hodges? I'm expecting there to be nudity in D vs. M #5.
Oh, snap. Here's the thing, though. Will it be nudity that people want, or will it be nudity like people complain about in Mouse unjustifiably because it's not pornographic nudity?
That's the trick. Here's, and this doesn't spoil anything because it's so far off and, people will forget anyway.
Okay, so I'll just note to like at 153 YouTube short. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
And then I'm probably going to go and try to mow the lawn. So this doesn't spoil really anything. I had an idea or the concept for D vs. M #5 is the POV character is an abductee, someone who got abducted by aliens. Okay. And it's telling this character's story when they're with the aliens, like everything that occurs while they're up on the ship and with them. When you read these alien abduction stories, usually they come to on the ship nude. And I felt like, okay, well then that's where we're gonna have to start with it. Like that this character at least at some point is going to be naked in the thing, and because of what I just said, that one of my pet peeves with art is prudishness. Like the woman gets off the bed and wraps the bed sheet around her and walks around the room like it's a toga. Like I've never seen that in real life. That's not a thing. So like that's the kind of stuff where I just check out. Like it's like, this is ridiculous. This is like theater. So it's like, all right, I have to draw. And I always imagined this abductee character was a female. This becomes an interesting creative problem where I don't want it pornographic. Yeah. I don't want people looking at her and going like, wow, nice ass. But I also want to be honest about the nudity. Yeah. So, and that I think that's probably like a composition question or something, or or something like that, or a position like.
Well, and it might also be like, strangely enough, it might also be a realism thing, because like a lot of people will just sort of cartoonify nudity to an extent where it's just purely meant for porno purposes, basically.
And do more of a life drawing move where it's not. This isn't a boudoir photo. Like this is just a nude person. Like and that hopefully that will draw people out of that mode. But that's a problem we're gonna have to solve a few years from now, is how to do that. I don't know how.
Does it weird you out though that like, okay, so like you mentioned nudity, right, in a comic. Mm-hmm. And instantly people are going to be like, oh, is it pornographic? Right. Whereas if you mention somebody getting their brains blown out in a comic.
Oh, it's totally.
Our culture is just so weird. It is very prudish.
This is a well-trodden point. But no, America's so backwards on this. Like, if my nephew is 6 years old or 7. Yeah. My attitude was, if we were on a beach and he saw some topless girl, I would think it was absolutely no big deal. Yeah. And if we were on the beach and we saw, some surfer get gobbled up by a shark, like I would think this is horrific and I'm going to cover his eyes. Like he doesn't need to see that. But when we think about what kind of entertainment we allow kids to see, it's exactly flopped. Yeah. It makes no sense to me.
It is bizarre. Okay? Yeah.
It's crazy. And I think from actually a male perspective, it doesn't serve men to preserve this weird mystique about the female body. Yeah. Like, I mean, this only creates men who are obsessed with seeing it. It only creates an unhealthy relationship with this forbidden fruit. Like, and meanwhile, these 14-year-olds are playing Call of Duty all day long and headshotting people. I do not understand. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I know I sound like the old guy in the room, but I don't care. It makes no sense. I hate to say it, but the Europeans have a better idea about it.
Yes. And honestly, the Japanese too. Nude
on beaches and no one cares. And they're really concerned about what kind of weird violent content are the kids seeing. I think that's obviously correct. And I think this is my thought about it. When it comes to sex, you need to develop a healthy relationship with that in your life. Yeah. There is 100%. No need to develop a relationship with headshotting someone. Like that is not something that's ever going to come up in your life.
Like
that is with God.
Let's put it this way. If you live a fulfilled life, right, at some point you're probably, one would hope, going to have sex. Like that would probably be, you would almost wish that on your worst enemy. Like I would hope that everyone at some point in their life is able to kind of experience this natural thing in biology. Whereas if you died and you'd never had to kill someone, punch someone, hit someone, ever be in a fight, any of that.
That's a success.
Good for you. Exactly. I don't think anyone's looking at that life and going, boy, they could have benefited from just some ultra violence,
I think that's exactly it. Like it's nonsense. It's weird. Like this is, I don't know. I mean, again, well-trodden, not an original thought, but it's this weirdly puritanical hang up. Yeah. When it comes to all things sexuality. Yeah. That I'm sorry, like I didn't realize I was this bohemian until like you watch how people talk about it. But it's like you guys, you really sound like a bunch of squares.
Yep.
Like it's really kind of sad. And yet the violence,
and it also kind of encourages cultures of people who are like repressed and just kind of like uptight about that kind of thing, and then it kind of affects, I think, their mental health and also encourages violence in the same people. I think we're both kind of hippies on this point.
I don't know what I have trouble, and maybe someone could list some, and maybe I would understand them or maybe not, but I don't see the benefit of being spooky or uptight or weird about human body or sexuality. I see now, and I'm not talking about sexualizing kids or whatever the hashtag is now, but I'm just talking about normal, healthy relationships. And part of this also is my anthropology background. A lot of tribes in the world, like, they're living in tents where mom and dad are having sex and the kids are in the room. Like, there's no, and they're not a bunch of sex maniacs. Like, it's the same as eating or bodily functions or anything else. This is a part of life. Again, to your point, stabbing someone to death or shooting someone to death is something that, God willing, if you're lucky, you will never have to do. Not once, but you will have to have a normal healthy physical relationship with another human being at some point.
And I think the thing is, like, both are natural, right?
Yes.
But one is something you'd probably want to encourage because it actually furthers the species, right?
And one we should discourage.
And the other is like something that we all kind of, I think, hope we can evolve past, right? At some point. And the weird thing to me is also the puritanical thing, because again, even if that's tied to like, or connected to like a religious background, have any of these people actually read the Bible? Like it's insane how much sex and violence there is in the Bible. Like it's not a book that's like puritanical in that sense either. So it's like, I just don't understand where the whole thing originates from. Except that I feel like maybe in our break from England, we went just a little too un-Europe, or like, screw Europe, and we kind of did a lot of good things, and for some reason we kind of had this little hitch that we were like, we have to be un-Europe about this, and it's like, no, actually Europe's right about this. I
think, and here's my spicy hot take before I go.
Spicy take. I love it.
My spicy take is when it's like, where does it come from? Because you don't see, these hang-ups about like weapons or violence or anything else. It seems very focused on sexuality. I'm sorry if this is too spicy, but I think it's all about controlling women. I don't see any other logical explanation. I think it's about controlling female sexuality. And I can't think of any other logical explanation why we're so preoccupied with that. And so disinterested in so many bigger problems.
That's actually a very good point. I think I agree with you on that hot take. And with that, Mr. Hodges, you have a lawn to mow.
I do.
I have a dinner to have, so I'm actually going to close out as well. Right. And I will be back to streaming like a maniac in about half an hour to an hour. Because
well, I might be, assuming I survive my lawn mowing, maybe I'll at least be watching.
It's true. After all this talk of violence, there's going to be a horribly violent situation with a lawnmower.
No, I might be like just passed out on the lawn in heat exhaustion. And
that's a fair point.
Yeah. That's the risk. So
anyway, okay, I was worried about like a lawnmower coming to life and just being like, you don't like animated violence, I'm lawnmower man, and you're like, oh no. All right. Anyhow, you guys, thank you so much to everybody who's watched this. If you haven't yet, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. Make sure you're subscribed to Gary Hodges' channel, and if you haven't given Dinosaurs vs. Marsbots a chance, DVSM. Pick up 1979. You don't even have to have the first ones, although I'd encourage you to. Each one is its own story. Go to Etsy and pick up this book. It's a good read. I would say that whether I knew Gary or not, like they're really great comics. And with that, if you happen to be European and you are in the Artcasters crew, start talking to us more, because we're trying to play this risk game and take over the world. We have Canada, we have North America. We need to expand. We need to expand our reach.
We're playing the game of world domination.
Darn right. And thank you guys. Also, if you haven't yet, subscribe to Gary's YouTube channel. Gary, is there anywhere else people should check out? Did I nail it all?
My Instagram.
Nice.
Which is Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. Dinosaurs vs Marsbots.
Awesome. So check all those things out, and I will see you guys later tonight. And thanks to everybody who tuned in. And thank you again, Gary, for hanging out. It makes it like working in the bullpen, which I really appreciate. And I will see you guys on the next live stream. Bye.